Despite everything that had transpired, I felt a strong conviction from the Lord to remain in the position He had appointed me for. Part of the controversy surrounding Daystar Television Network that is particularly distressing right now is the allegations of sexual abuse and the subsequent cover-up within the Lamb family. We don't feel safe at home, so Susie and I are not telling anyone where we are. Just so you know, Julie Roy has been presented with all the evidence and is hard at work penning a story that will be released soon. All the evidence has been presented to multiple national writers as of this afternoon. A scandal involving allegations of secrecy, betrayal, and failure to protect the most vulnerable individuals has emerged from what was once a private family matter. Central to these assertions is Joni Lamb. She prioritized the family's reputation over their daughter's right to justice, according to her son, Jonathan Lamb, and his wife, Suzy. Some stories that are going to make headlines soon should be their subject. No one told us this would be our permanent home. We pleaded with God for months for a change, but ultimately we had no choice but to comply. He makes it more difficult when He says, "You have to speak." Leaving would have been easier, but we must obey His commands if He asks us to. Despite the difficulties, He has guided us and brought us great peace. The allegations of abuse were initially brought to light in 2020, according to Jonathan and Suzy, when their then young daughter claimed to have been a victim of abuse. She kept mum at first, but eventually began to finger a relative named Pete as the culprit. Reportedly, while on vacation with his family in Florida in August 2021, Jonathan discovered Pete in a private room with his daughter, undressed. Jonathan and Suzy informed the authorities about their concerns due to the disturbing discovery. Something obviously went wrong in their opinion. I hope this message finds you well. Even in the midst of utter chaos, God can see the larger picture. As long as we remain true to Him, stand up for what is right, and speak the truth, He will carry us through. Surely He will. This journey has not been easy, but we still ask for and value your prayers. Much obliged. Both the alleged abuse and the subsequent handling of the scandal contribute to its stench. According to Jonathan and Suzy, Joni Lamb advised them to remain silent when they informed her about the issue, rather than supporting their decision to contact the authorities. Rather than prioritizing her niece's justice, Joni allegedly prioritized safeguarding the Daystar Television Network and the family's reputation. Allegations that she attempted to prevent individuals from suing have prompted further accusations that she was complicit in covering up the incident to protect her reputation. If you live in Texas and suspect child abuse, you have a legal obligation to notify the authorities. It is Jonathan and Suzy's firm belief that they fulfilled their duties. However, the initial probe was halted due to a lack of evidence and the unwillingness of their daughter to divulge any further details. She had trouble explaining what had happened due to the stress she had been through, and the police needed more evidence before they could press charges. There was a delay in reviewing the case until late 2024, following the rumored discovery of new evidence. Because of this, everyone started to wonder how Daystar and the Lamb family had dealt with similar situations before. Claims of a cover-up have been publicly denied by Joni Lamb. During a tearful episode of Joni TBL Talk, she addressed the accusations head-on, declaring, "I never covered up anything. Marcus didn't cover up anything." She went on to say that the accusations were an attempt to damage her leadership and the reputation of the network. While Jonathan and Suzy are fabricating a story Joni claims to make her appear guilty of something that never happened, claiming that her son was launching the smear campaign in retaliation for her dismissal from Daystar's leadership position, she denied the allegations. Sticking to God's will hasn't been easy, but we've persevered. Countless pieces of evidence are starting to surface, so take a look. God has taught us a lot and made us do some really tough things in the past few years. But we have this evidence because He told us to. Therefore, I strongly advise you to consider the evidence rather than relying solely on your emotions or hearsay. Many are curious as to how a Christian broadcasting leader could be subjected to such grave accusations, and the scandal has certainly sparked some discussion. While Joni's defenders argue that Jonathan and Suzy's accusations are baseless and motivated by resentment over Jonathan's expulsion from the network, others argue that the family's handling of the accusations raises disturbing questions about prioritizing the reputation of an institution over a child's safety. Some have voiced concerns about the way religious groups deal with internal conflicts generally, but particularly in cases of serious accusations of wrongdoing. Daystar was founded on principles like trust, honesty, and following the rules. Now it finds itself at the center of a case that questions those very principles. The scandal has created an irreconcilable rift in the Lamb family. It has been a long, painful road, but God will bring everything to light in His own time. After giving everyone involved a lot of time to change their ways, Joni Lamb has strongly denied the accusations against her, saying that she was the victim of an attack rather than a leader hiding a crime. Jonathan and Suzy are determined to find those responsible, while Joni fights to clear her name and safeguard Daystar's legacy. It will be very important to see how these accusations play out and whether the network can recover from the damage they've done. At the height of the accusations, she addressed them head-on her show Joni Table Talk, appearing visibly distressed as she vehemently denied any wrongdoing. "I never hid anything," she said. "Marcus didn't hide anything," she repeated repeatedly. For Joni, this story isn't about justice or the truth. It's an attempt to destroy her reputation and make Daystar Television Network unstable. The decision to fire my son Jonathan Lamb from his job at Daystar wasn't an easy one. After his performance had been reviewed for 15 months and he still hadn't implemented a comprehensive plan to improve his work, as well as rejected my offer to mediate our differences in a professional and godly manner, official mediation had been instituted. In her defense, Joni has stated that the accusations are part of a plot to smear her son Jonathan Lamb and his wife Suzy. She has argued that the accusations are motivated by animosity rather than facts and stem from Jonathan's expulsion from Daystar. Joni suggests that Jonathan's disappointment with the leadership transition following Marcus Lamb's death may have clouded his judgment, leading him to fabricate a story that would cast her in a negative light. Beyond characterizing the accusations as a personal attack, Joni has also raised issues with Jonathan and Suzy's account of events, stating that the case was initially closed due to a lack of evidence and was only reviewed years later. This leads her to believe that their renewed efforts to promote the story coincide with Jonathan's expulsion from the network, which, in her view, appears to be motivated more by a desire for personal gain than by a genuine desire for justice. By casting doubt on the veracity of their claims, Joni has attempted to shift the focus away from whether she did a poor job handling the charges and onto the veracity of the accusations. It is now obvious that Jonathan's goal at Daystar was not to improve his work, but rather to launch a smear campaign. You see, after his father and my husband, Marcus Lamb, passed away, Jonathan was understandably upset that he was not named president of Daystar. This was so even though Marcus had made it quite clear to the family and the board that I would be the next president. I can honestly say that this situation makes me very sad because I love my family and am a mother and grandma. I love all of my kids. I love my kids and grandkids. I love the work we've done together for years. I was hoping we could have worked things out behind closed doors. Jonathan was already so upset about not getting his way, and it got worse when I married Dr. Doug Weiss, who has been such a blessing to me, my family, and Daystar. Aside from claiming that her love for her family and faith proves her innocence, Joni has portrayed herself as a selfless grandmother and mother who would never put her own needs ahead of her family's. Her supporters argue that someone who has lived her entire life serving Christians would never do what they accuse her of doing. They believe that Joni is being unjustly attacked by a jealous relative who is trying to discredit her leadership by leveling the most serious charges against her. Despite Joni's vehement denial, she has faced significant criticism and backlash. Many Christians remain uncertain about her responses, claiming that her handling of the situation was extremely poor. Critics argue that she should have taken action rather than attempted a covert fix because the charge that she advised Jonathan and Suzy not to go to court, whether to preserve Daystar's reputation or the family's privacy, is still very bad. Now, though, I feel compelled to speak out because Jonathan has prompted me to do so. Our whole lives have been dedicated to sharing the love of Jesus, so it pains me to watch my son Jonathan and his wife attack that message. I want you to know that the accusations made against my late husband and me are completely unfounded. We have already hired lawyers to defend ourselves, and we will handle the charges in a way that honors God. We remain steadfast in our faith because we know that God is with us and that His plan for Daystar is greater than any temporary setbacks. Despite the hurt and wrongness of this attack, I am confident that we are fighting a spiritual enemy who will do anything to destroy and divide us. Please pray for me. I am grateful for all the love and support you have shown me. Joni's denial of guilt has not helped diffuse the situation. On the contrary, her refusal to acknowledge any errors has drawn even more scrutiny upon herself. Rather than addressing the intricacies of the situation with a measured approach, she has opted to categorically deny the accusations, which has led some to perceive her as overly protective rather than honest. Her decision to label the entire affair as a smear campaign has also caused some to question whether she is truly prepared to contemplate the far-reaching consequences of what has transpired. Despite her progress, Joni Lamb finds herself at a crossroads. The accusations have damaged her leadership reputation and the network's credibility, but she has managed to retain her position as head of Daystar. Her defense strategy, which avoids confronting the real issues in favor of attacking her accusers, may appease her devoted followers but will fail to sway those who are still on the fence. Whether her reputation can withstand the investigation and the release of new evidence will determine the outcome. One thing is certain, Joni Lamb will continue to defend her leadership position and her status as a prominent figure in Christian television as long as these accusations persist. The telethon is held every 6 months in a room with booths and phones. I believe it's called Heart for the World. A few hundred people work there solely to answer the phones. During the telethon, the prayer department was in charge of taking donations. However, every once in a while, there would be so many calls that everyone in the company had to be ready with their phones. Interestingly enough, my phone rang during one of those times when there were a lot of calls. When I picked up the phone, it was a kind little elderly woman sobbing and explaining that she owed a lot of money. She didn't have any cash on hand, but there was a little amount remaining on her credit card, which she plans to give to Daystar because she heard on the radio that if you give $11,000, 0 cents today, God will give you $10,000, 0 cents back. The accusations against Joni Lamb and Daystar Television Network have raised serious concerns about transparency, justice, and moral obligation. Legally, the case hinges on Texas law, which states that anyone who suspects a child is being abused must immediately notify the authorities. At issue is whether Joni, in her capacity as a grandmother and head of a large Christian television network, acted in accordance with the law and her moral compass when she learnt of allegations of sexual abuse in her family. Many are outraged by the way religious groups deal with such accusations and question whether they are held to the same standards as secular group leaders. According to Jonathan and Suzy Lamb, they acted legally by reporting their concerns to the police when their daughter first informed them about the abuse. Initially, the case was closed due to a lack of evidence. The girl couldn't provide clear answers at the time. However, when new information was alleged to have surfaced years later, the case was revived, leading to a reevaluation of the initial handling. Joni Lamb's alleged role in preventing Jonathan and Suzy from going to court raises serious moral questions. If proven true, such actions would be morally reprehensible and prohibited by law as a matter of paramount importance. Safeguarding the victim of abuse must always take precedence. However, the allegations cast doubt on the readiness of religious organizations, particularly those headed by families, to confront allegations of misconduct in an open and fair manner. Rather than utilizing contemporary legal systems to resolve disputes, religious groups frequently resort to biblical principles. This approach may be appropriate for less serious disputes, but it is woefully inadequate when confronted with serious allegations such as child abuse. Some may believe that such matters are best handled discreetly within the family or the church, which can lead victims to feel unheard and offenders to go unpunished. It would be a leadership failure and an ethical obligation for Daystar to attempt to handle the matter privately instead of supporting a full legal investigation if they did so. This was all that was known to us and had been done up until that point, but we hadn't asked beforehand. So I was furious and confused, but I won't pretend to have moved on. It was tough, but that's how we were taught. God is our evidence. In the future, Jonathan and I will lead. You must be manly, humble, and unite your family. Do whatever it takes to be loved and friendly. Play golf with him, have coffee with her, apologize. That's how Christ was. We did it from the depths of our hearts, not because we lied about it, but because it was our heart's desire. We were still having a hard time getting along, and there were rules about the house. In the afternoon, I went to Daystar to get something from the cafe there with my child. We stopped taking her there because I could tell she was scared, but I needed to grab something quickly this time because I had good reasons to be worried. Eventually, I believed my dad had cleared Pete with this expert, so we moved on. One important ethical consideration is how this debate will affect Daystar's reputation as a faith-based network. Since Daystar is a Christian organization, its viewers and mission partners are curious to see how it deals with these accusations. Those who support Joni argue that she is being unfairly targeted and that Jonathan's accusations stem from personal grudges. However, some wonder if a ministry leader should continue in charge when they are accused of violating fundamental moral and ethical standards. It is also important to note that there are concerns regarding the handling of abuse claims in church groups more generally. Historically, religious institutions have struggled to be transparent about their own internal issues, prioritizing the protection of the institution over personal accountability. The Daystar scandal is a microcosm of a larger global problem that has affected religious groups, churches, and charities worldwide. As the investigation progresses, lawyers and activist groups are closely watching how the police handle the case and whether Daystar will be held more accountable. The debate serves as a clear warning that no group, religious or otherwise, is immune to the law, regardless of the outcome. Moral leadership entails more than just teaching ideals. It also involves being committed to fairness, honesty, and protecting the vulnerable. In the months to come, we will witness whether Daystar and its leaders are up to the challenge or if their former supporters will continue to lose faith in them. I step inside. It's past noon. I thought the green room would be deserted. It was awful that I had to bring her along. I was grabbing that box of food when Pat and his wife came in, and my little girl lost all strength and fell hard under the table. I picked her up and ran to the car, and some trusted relatives of mine heard about it. They heard how terrible it was, and I told them I wasn't going to bring my kid here for a while. Things were getting tough in our relationship. We were so close before this, and it was really tough. We cried a lot, and it hurt a lot. A text message came saying, "Hey, your dad's really sick." It was the first time in our lives that Jonathan and I didn't get along well with his parents. Would you be able to come and lend a hand, please? Everything else just fell into place when I said, "Of course, I'll come spend the night. I'll stay on the couch." Since he hadn't been admitted to the hospital yet, I stayed on the couch with him, taking care of him, assisting him with his bathroom needs, and doing whatever else was necessary because we love our parents. What began as a private family matter has turned into a full-on public spectacle. The accused, Joni Lamb, and Daystar Television Network have been the subject of non-stop media coverage. Our child is safe with that person, though.